are revolutionary moments in gaming, and also in all walks of life, of course. What do I look like, some nerd? I am. But regardless, these moments of innovation are interesting to discuss. And I let this be the opening prelude to me, Seer, internet schlub and all-around schlub, finding the best ARPG of all time. There's like 50 fucking games to look at, and you think I'm not going to be playing Minecraft Dungeons? But that's for the future, not the topic at hand today. The focus of this video is what is considered one of the greatest achievements of this subgenre, a legitimately great follow-up on design philosophies of yesteryear, which created what many people consider one of the most in-depth and interesting ARPGs ever made. I felt nothing was more ideal. We are starting by looking at Path of Exile. I hate Path of Exile, but I'm not holding a grudge. The entire point of the series, and all my series is to try and expand my own horizons, play the cards of objectivity, interactivity, and swearing more than any man should on a given subject. You might wonder what criteria I'm going to use, what kinds of details I'll be ranking, or if I realize how fruitless and arbitrary my answer is bound to be. Well, here's my philosophy. I won't be able to say with utmost universal confidence that the game I choose to be the greatest ARPG ever is actually the objective best one, because there's this whole subjectivity thing going around. Three little bear bullshit, you know. This one is to this one is to that, all this getting in the way of total Chad logic answers. But pretend you're in my shoes for a second. I've been around the gaming block a few times, I've had a moderate wealth of experience, and now I'm going to go through and play the entire catalog of this genre with expectations and opinions that start with Activision Izzard. And for me, I'll know which game is seemingly the best one. I'm pretty positive it's not going to be Minecraft Dungeons. As of today, I've only used this format of multiple videos made to contend for the best in a particular thing in a specific concept twice, or in human, non-Martian fucking terms, finding the best something in one game. But now that I'm looking at an entire genre, I need to change up what I evaluate, and I've given it a lot of thought. To begin, I will obviously need to play each game a sufficient amount. This has been a work in progress in the background and will continue to be as I make entries in this series. So if you think these entries are releasing too fast for him to have played the game enough to review it, I think this guy's a total stain in my drawers, then think again. A baseline of around 100 hours is needed in the game to get a general feeling of many concepts. If I somehow complete the entire experience before this milestone, then I will elaborate on that at the time. Okay, enough of this around the bush beating. Here's a roadmap for each of these videos. Not 2, not 3, not 5. Thanks for guessing too high. You've now diminished the impact of 4 sections worth of game analysis. Those being a look at the gameplay, attempting to include the new player and veteran player perspective. Secondly, flexibility and depth of systems, followed by theme, art, and music, which will probably be the most subjective section by far, and then ending with player and developer support, which is like mods and shit. I know a couple of these ideas are going to be subjective talk, but I gotta have some points where I can swear and say I very much enjoy or dismay of this shit, you know? I will evaluate each category and give you my best attempt at being objective, and then a very personalized opinion on how I feel, all with the goal of finding what seems to be the most polished, well put together, best ARPG ever made. Okay, without further ado, Path of Exile. This game sucks. I'm just kidding. No, actually I'm not. For the most part, every ARPG will have a similar kind of style. Firstly, you probably have the isometric perspective. That's good. And then you've got a lot of things on screen at a given time. Great, yeah. Finally, you have a host of abilities to lay waste to the land. And point number 1 to PoE. It goes absolutely ballistic with options for the player, but it illuminates the main problem I have with the game, and I call it the illusion of depth. By the way, I'm happy to be wrong about all my points. I'll get this out of the way now because I'm not chief expert at, well, anything really, but especially the copious amount of mechanics found in this game. Remember, this is a review, not an objective look at what's the best ARPG of all time or anything. Get some other good things out of the way before I start bitching. In Path of Exile's gameplay, it's always doing something. Either some super beam of light explodes onto your screen, or a wave of enemies appear and then they drop what seems to be the rarest thing ever due to the admittedly great sound design. So you'll never be doing next to nothing. That's a good idea for a game based around doing things. But back to a little sass, or a salty ass shit talk section, I have a huge red X here over a little thing known as general combat, which is a great negative to have in a game that revolves around killing things. For the most part, combat feels like a coin flip, of course impacted by your build and gear and stuff, I know, but you're going to have such little difficulty killing things that you feel like you must be the strongest entity in the entire game, or conversely, you're a tiny baby tier creature who dies the instant some spiked ball sucker comes out of the next room. Without joke, through the like 5 playthroughs I've done of this game alone for this video, and including the past years of me trying to get into Path, I have had very few actually engaging fights. I would visualize it like an hourglass, with only a small section of the battles being fun. That's like the middle section. It's like, that's the middle. The top and the bottom, that's shit, and the middle's good. That was ad-libbed, could you tell? But I have to give props to the developers, grinding my Gears games because they have made something so expansive with such great depth and creativity. You can try almost anything, and yeah, while your idea for a build might suck or it's prohibitively expensive, it offers droves of new experiences. I do find that impressive. What isn't as impressive is that every build worth dick diddly is pretty much one attack skill and one movement skill. You're not even afforded a ton of freedom to wonder if you can just stack tons of stuff because this dinkly ass bar is so small that you can't even use it. Okay, so I've gone through this section and realized that I'm being entirely too negative for what could be the ARPG with the most content ever, so I'm going to be bouncing between this game has some seriously good shit and this game is seriously shit. Okay, so anyway, we've kind of gone over the skeleton of the gameplay, your RPG mechanics, so how does the game actually go? Well, you have 10 acts of content before you can get into endgame farming, but really the core idea never changes. You go into a zone, stare at the blue line and follow it around to the next zone and just hit a button that clears the entire screen for you. Then the confetti rain of Bink and Bork will alert you to when you ought to care about anything, so you'll feel very accomplished. I'm trying to convey that this is all half good, half bad. The good part is, of course, that things are always going on. The bad part is that those things aren't actually fun usually. Between you one-shotting everything, getting one shot, filling up your inventory with thousands of items that you genuinely can't perceive the grand importance of as a new player, there might very well be too much going on. Not to mention the annoying, constantly pervasive league mechanics in my ass, but I'll get back to that later. And yes, there are bosses. They are annoying as well in my personal opinion, but that's probably because I'm not familiar enough with fundamentals. I give the drove of bosses my useless thumbs up from Seer award though, because it's good that the content has a lot of progression, something many games in this genre have a problem with. But from all the testimony I've seen and heard, fighting a lot of the new challenges is prohibitively hard. You could play 8 hours a day and still have trouble getting many attempts at the newest top tier thing. And now that I've got the gumption to chat about time consumption, I also want to mention that there's way too much emphasis on doing new league content as fast and as much as possible. Getting league specific achievements is a heinously vacuuming consideration where you have to sacrifice all the time you could be bitching about Blizzard in order to finish your tasks. In general, a lot of players' consensus that I've heard is that the game has too much fear of missing out, with GGG changing or taking things away at a whim. And finally, leagues are the primary source of content, and that's good. I love releveling. That's a 50% genuine statement. I don't mind replaying a game usually, but the problem is, as a casual player, going through tedious and easy difficulty into a wall of getting my ass splattered is not fun. So to counteract the splatterage of my posterior, how does the mechanics and system depth help aid the player? Honestly, I'm not even sure the developers themselves know what strategies players are going to develop anymore. That's how intense some of this gets. They will be there to nerf it though, that's always a guarantee. The fundamentals of this game are strong because they're essentially ARPG lovers putting everything they enjoy into one package, which unfortunately makes a lot of the experience bloated and counterproductive. I'll be frank about my opinion, but there's too much going on to the point where a new player will have next to no concept on how to progress. It shouldn't be an expectation for the player to read guides constantly while playing or simply relying on full build and gear specifications to appreciate the game. Even thinking on how to describe the entirety of the mechanics is confusing. To start, you have a skill tree which is the size of North Dakota. Then you have skill gems that you socket into gear, which gives you access to specific abilities, supported by other gems that have to go into the correct colored node slots as long as there are links between them. Then you have Ascendancy, which gives more skill choices, but on top of that you also have Pantheon choices to make. But beyond that, you have jewels that give access to even more skill nodes, and then you have gear, of course, adding another level of customization, and then you can circumvent the need to find gear by using crafted pieces instead, and then finally there comes a time when you wonder if you're ever going to get to play the fucking game instead of reading about it. And yes, I'm not good at this game. Get your shit talk out of the way now, thanks. I have no quarrel with this argument, but forgive me for not being almost immediately at the point where I'm making builds, planning gear, getting my 5 flasks picked out of 5,000 options, understanding endgame boss mechanics, crafting gear that's ideal for my build, considering I also don't know what skill gems I really need or what my build is called to begin with. But it doesn't stop there. After you slave through hundreds of paragraphs trying to understand the gameplay mechanics, there's currency everywhere that requires more processing. And then there's old league mechanics that are just shoved into every nook and cranny, making you stop and ponder even more systems with other unique currencies. And for a new player, understanding what progresses you forward and what is unnecessary is almost impossible. I swear, you can't walk anywhere without being harassed about something you could go do instead of the main game. And this is not to mention, again, sorry for the constant subjective arguments that would be genuinely solved with more brain power, but nothing in this game seems like it wants to work without some nuts setup. You'll find uniques with modifiers that require X or Y or convert all damage to this other type, or you need this requirement to derive this benefit, or this skill node helps you in a great way if you do this very specific thing. And there is a point at which the bed sounds like a better place to spend my evening than sitting here laboring over documents attempting to make something good for myself, and all it results in is a hard-locked character that can't complete anything after the axe. Take for example my Marauder attempt. Big boy designed to bury bitches. I wanted to build this character to hit the ground and take as many damage improving abilities as possible while nabbing some good defensive nodes on the way. You're out of your nut if you think I'm going to make a passive building build, read this tree from top to bottom, make educated and deliberate decisions, and then plan on my necessary gear out of 10,000 options. I just want to use a club. That should be enough of a clue of how much planning I'd like to do here. But in general, if you do understand what's going on, the systems harmonize into what is probably an extremely rewarding and enjoyable game. You can do so much. It's like an ultimate sandbox experience. Thousands of builds, all sorts of fun dopamine releasing drops to hunt for, endgame bosses to fight. All very good, I admit. Although, again, something negative, but I won't elaborate on much because I haven't been an extremely dedicated player from the beginning, but I've seen an amazing amount of salt coming out of this community over the years about changes. Things about balance sucking, changing the speed of the game, yada yada. Is that relevant? Probably not, but I'm willing to bet even long-standing players have gotten sick of things over time. Here's some more content for your video watching pleasure, a little theme, art, and music discussion. Okay, well, Path does something very well, and it's make beaches. Beyond that, it's good at making crabs. Beyond the crabs, it's amazing if you like dark, gritty settings with themes of death, blood, magic, etc. You know, crabs and beaches. Definitely good if you like those things. I fucking don't. Everything is such a blur, and this is obviously personal. I think the artists and designers are talented, but PoE is an excessively grim experience, but not grim in a fun or engaging way. It's more of a, I wish there were some more vibrancy here kind of way, not counting the attack skills and sound design, both of which are home runs in ways. Again, these artists did great technically, and the sound design is very motivating and fun. It's just sometimes way too everything. There's shit exploding, the screen is 90 colors at once, you can't tell what's going on, the purple and blue bordered enemies sidling up all the while being mismatched shapes or sludges and rocks or, you know, just skeletons. Just fucking skeletons. You need that satisfying crunch to make... Hang on, you need that satisfying... Is that satisfying? Oh shit, look at that. Oh my god, the audio. You just need something satisfying for a basic enemy concept to pop, and Path constantly makes me feel like they wanted filet mignon sound and graphic design when they could have settled for some McDonald's and it would have made the experience more poppy and fun. Honestly, the acts are not severely different, and I think it comes down to color choice. It's a blue and black beach into a crypt of some descript, and then a forest, and then some beaches and docks, and then more crypts, and then you fight the fucking curtains. And then acts 6 through 10 are just the first 5, but with Kitava and his goons dumping their ass all over it, so now that everything is even more miserable, and I don't like the design of it. I told you this section was subjective ball suck. Let's talk about the next one instead. I can't take away the huge dicks, only metaphorically, not literally, of the developers. They produce a lot of stuff and seem to be good at listening to when the community hates changes. Here's a huge negative to them though, ready? Because I'm only gonna say it like 5 times, but this trading, this is heinous. The fact that the community themselves have produced the tools that are, you know, still by most accounts 1990 to 2000 era-ish, and that's the only reason trading is not the worst thing ever, is astounding. Guys, it's an ARPG, and especially since we're talking about your game, there needs to be a better way of offloading all this assload of currency. Beyond that, a loot filter is practically necessary, and oh yeah, the big elephant of being able to purchase stash tabs to quote-unquote enhance the game. By enhance, I mean make the game tolerable. Now, Path of Exile is free, so this isn't a criticism about microtransactions as a whole. Because honestly, the game is truly tremendously generous. Unless you want some of these friggin' clown costumes in which, yeah, open up that wallet there. Anyhow, I'm about out of things to say. It seems like a pretty good time for a verdict, which, well, let me introduce my plan. When I finish each entry in this series, I'll either give the game a potential rating of could be the best ARPG of all time, or definitely not, fuck it. If I say definitely not, fuck it, it's out of the running. If I say it could potentially be the best game, then it goes back on my pile and I'll be reassessing it in the background. Plus, I'm going to guarantee an entire hardcore run of the game in order to prove that I've become intimately familiar with the mechanics. And at the end of this run of videos, I will pit all the games that passed the first round against each other. And I would say Path of Exile could potentially be the best ARPG of all time. I am greatly annoyed by that. Next time, how about we go for a game that's a little more underground? And not Minecraft Dungeons, that shit ain't coming soon.